Pete Hegseth testified before the House today. We'll touch on that, but we're going to touch on China. We'll talk to Julio Rosas about what's going on in Los Angeles, the big, beautiful bill, all that and more coming up on I'm Right. Okay, so let's talk about China in kind of a roundabout way. You see, first of all, Pete Hegseth spoke on the House today. Spoke at the House, on the House. He spoke in front of the House today, in front of the House of Representatives. What's he doing? He's the defense secretary, and he's bouncing around Capitol Hill asking for money. That's how it works. When you're head of the FBI, you go to Congress and beg for money. When you're Secretary of Defense, you have to go to the House and say, I need money for this, I need money for that, I need money for this. And of course, Democrats up and down the line didn't really want to talk about the defense of America or the military or ships or planes. They wanted to talk about the United States military getting involved in these riots in LA. There was a whole lot of talk like this.
Mr. Secretary, we're both from Minnesota. I was in the Twin Cities during the riots that followed the murder of George Floyd. Tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets for days. Governor Walz made the decision to call up the Minnesota National Guard. At no point did we need the citizens of Minnesota request that the Marines be deployed.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you for the question. You are right. We are both originally from Minnesota, which is why I recall 2020 quite well, when Governor Walz abandoned a police precinct and allowed it to be burned to the ground, and also allowed 5 days of chaos to occur inside the streets of Minneapolis.
What's going on here? Why are they upset about the Marines being sent in? Aguilar was concerned about how they're sleeping and whatnot.
Mr. Secretary, I want to express my severe concern with the deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles without consultation of the state of California. There have been photographs that have shown these troops sleeping on the floor and have not been provided fuel, food, or water by DOD. How long will this deployment last, and why were we unprepared to provide them basic necessities such as food and water?
The commanders and troops on the field are very well prepared, sir. There are moments where you make do as best you can temporarily, but we are ensuring they're housed, fed, water capabilities in real time from my office, because I care that much about the California Guard and the Marines and the men and women who are supporting our ICE agents on the ground. It's true every day, and that's a disingenuous attack that misrepresents how much we care about our troops and what they're doing to defend ICE agents. I'm not going to take the fact that we don't care about the troops. Nobody cares more about the troops at the top than this secretary and the chairman and our department.
How long will the deployment last?
We stated very publicly that it's 60 days. Because we want to ensure that those rioters, looters, and thugs on the other side assaulting our police officers know that we're not going anywhere. We're here to maintain the peace on behalf of law enforcement officers in Los Angeles, which Gavin Newsom won't do.
Okay, couple things. First, lying on the ground, sleeping on the ground, not being provided for. It is, well, I'll just put it to you this way. I have mixed emotions about compulsory military service for a country, very mixed emotions. You know, a country like Israel, there are many in the world, but Israel comes to mind right away, that forces everybody to join the military for a certain period of time. Part of me loves it for a lot of reasons. Part of me hates it for a lot of reasons. But the part of me that loves it is questions like that. Anybody who's ever been in the service has slept on the ground, on the floor. You've dug a hole in the ground, in the mud, in the jungle. At one point in time, I was in triple canopy jungle with my feet, my naked feet on the ground, and a centipede the size of a snake crawled over them. It's called being in the military. You don't always have some cozy sheets in a bed. Sometimes you grab some shut-eye right there on the floor. It's no big deal. Buck up, Buttercup. And anybody who served knows that. That's one. Two, what are they actually mad about? Are they mad that they're not getting proper beds? Are they mad about the length of deployment? Are they mad about any of these things? No. They're mad about force on force. They're mad about their force being met with force and their revolution being stopped. That is their true concern. And that is why they get upset when you use force on them. Because remember what I've always told you about communists. They're religious zealots, and therefore they only understand fear and pain. They don't have a second language you can use. You're never going to reason with them. You're not going to appeal to their morality because they don't share your morality at all. Because they're religious zealots, think about them like radical jihadis. Fear and pain, it's all they understand. Well, not only do you need to understand that, they understand that. That's what they know. They know. They'll riot, they'll loot, they'll vandalize, they'll kill, they'll hurt people for as long as they possibly can until force stops them, until good stops them. They're not concerned about the Marines sleeping on the ground. They're concerned about the Marines smashing in the face of some filthy foreigner street communist who's pillaging Los Angeles right now. That's their main concern, and that's the only reason any Democrat, top to bottom, is questioning the deployment of Marines in Los Angeles. Deploy the Marines, smash the rioters, end this immediately. Now let's move on and talk about something that actually matters more than what's happening in Los Angeles right now. Pete Hegseth brought it up today. Let's talk about China.
I'm also proud to represent and serve our warriors and their families. Today, as they do every day, they are keeping America safe. They're defending the homeland. They're standing up and deterring communist China.
Standing up and deterring communist China. That wasn't a one-off. That wasn't something he just mentioned in the intro. You talked about communist China.
Clear any attempt by communist China to conquer Taiwan by force would result in devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. The threat China poses is real, and it could be imminent. We hope not.
Now, Trump has talked about China. Hegseth's always talking about China. Kash Patel's brought up China. China, China, China. So here's what can happen to you and me if we're not aware of what's going on. It's a very human nature thing. Why is China that big of a deal? It's a human nature thing to ask that question. They're not landing divisions of troops on the shores. There aren't Chinese submarines off the coast of California right now. There aren't Chinese fighter jets flying over Alaska. What are we worried about? Well, this is something that America wrestles with and will wrestle with. China is at war with us, but China has a very Eastern view of war. Eastern in this way. They believe in fighting a war differently, not just with bombs, not just with bullets, not just with the normal things. China fights wars in different ways. It's an Eastern, all-encompassing way to fight a war. We've talked about this before. Maybe you're aware of this. The Mongols, the Mongolian Empire, speaking of an Eastern view of war. You talk about the Mongols and immediately people think of Genghis Khan. If they know anything more about the Mongols, they're thinking about a horse army. That's essentially what it was. Horse archers, an army, very mobile, very fast, on horseback. They'll swarm you, kill you. They'll think about the Mongols laying siege to cities and killing everybody. These are all things the Mongols are famous for. You can argue, and I actually would argue, it's the greatest army that's ever walked the face of the planet. Unstoppable, wiped out everybody. But you know what people don't talk about? The Mongols fought wars in a variety of different ways. It wasn't just that Genghis Khan would show up outside of your city on horseback. Genghis Khan's spy, his intelligence service, was top of the line. He invested unbelievable amounts of time and money into ensuring his intelligence service was amazing. They would do things like, well, if he was thinking about conquering your city, his spies would be in your city 6 months, a year before his army ever showed up. They'd be finding out where the political divisions are in the city. Can they exploit those political divisions, spreading money around, ensuring that the city wasn't near as cohesive as it had been before? Maybe a little bit of poison in the water supply. Maybe bring in somebody with the plague, intentionally weakening the city from within So when the Mongolian hordes showed up outside of the gates, the city wasn't near as strong and ready as they could have been. That's exactly what China has been doing and is currently doing to the United States of America. They are importing fentanyl. They're trafficking it to the cartels. Well, what you need to make fentanyl, they're giving it to the cartels on purpose. This is something the Chinese Communist Party is obviously aware of, and it's something they want to happen. We now have 100,000 Americans a year dying of overdose. That's done intentionally. That's China weakening us. We now have a second story over the course of the last couple weeks of a Chinese person smuggling in pathogens, deadly pathogens, to put it inside of our food supply. They'll be interested in our water supply. Now, the problem is, for Norm and Norma, for average everyday American, you don't even know how to deal with these things. These things are random headlines you see on your phone and then you set them down. But what we do have to know is we are at war with China. That is not your call. It's not my call. We don't get a say. When it comes to wars, only one side gets a say. China has declared war on us. They intend to supplant us as the number one country on the planet. And they are fighting that war, not with bombs and bullets and submarines. They are fighting that war in a variety of different ways. They're all over the internet. Did you know that? Turning one American against another. They spend time and money doing this. Now, it's not like you need to do something. You don't need to run down to the local Chinese restaurant, start screaming at the cook. But we do have to acknowledge as a country, as a people, that we are already in a Cold War with China. And it's even more complicated because our economies depend on each other. China needs us buying goods. We need China making goods. Big old ugly situation. But it's the one we have. All right. Let's go talk to Julio Rosas about LA. Is he getting deported? Before we talk to Julio, I want to talk to you about testosterone. There is another thing that is destroying this country from within. Chinese divisions or not, we don't have testosterone. We have lost half of our testosterone in just 50 years. Do the math on that. What's that look like in another 50? We're not even going to have babies. We won't have enough men to fight a war when a war comes. We'll be just a big, effeminate society of losers, a whole country full of James Langfords. Is that what you want? Do you want to be James Langford? You want to sound like Lindsey Graham? Get a male vitality stack from chalk flowing through your veins, gentlemen. Natural herbal supplements having you feeling like $1 million every single day. Full of energy, ready to go. Chuck.com/JesseTV. We'll be back.
You know, you've heard reports that there are riots on the streets of Los Angeles. That is not what's happening across the city of Los Angeles.
Governor Newsom's right. There wasn't anything like a riot happening on Friday, Saturday.
We just witnessed a protester thanking a National Guardsman for his service here in California.
LAPD, by most estimates, had this under control last night.
No, I don't think the National Guard is needed now. Things in LA are calm. There was a protest that got a little unruly late at night.
There have been no violence where anybody that was protesting hit anybody, shot anybody, threatened anybody. Nothing has happened.
What is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn.
Most of those demonstrations were very peaceful.
It's peaceful. They're having fun watching cars burn. Let's find out how true all that stuff is. Joining me now, National Blaze correspondent, United States Marine, and possibly in ICE custody, Julio Rosas. Julio, what's going on in LA? Are you free right now?
That's a good one, Jesse. I'll give you that one. Yeah, I am in Los Angeles, and I have been so busy with the riots that have been happening. I did not even realize that Tom Elliott put that supercut together, and I was unaware just how much lying is happening right now between everybody. It's really ridiculous that despite being lambasted and just mocked relentlessly 5 years ago when they pulled that same mostly peaceful talking point, they're doing it again. And it just shows that they've learned absolutely nothing. And for me, that's kind of okay because it gives me job security because most Americans will tune out those people and tune into, people like me or any of my other friends who are here in Los Angeles covering the riots because, I mean, yes, there are protests, but they devolve into riots like what happened yesterday again. So I don't know what to expect today. We are expecting crowds to kind of gather back outside the federal building in downtown Los Angeles, but they're all lying. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than just the obvious fact, and all you gotta do is just look at the videos.
Julio, this is obviously not your first rodeo when it comes to dealing with the street animals. So can you give us a sense, because we're not on the ground, all we have are internet videos and Twitter and what the news is lying about. Obviously, LA is a very spread out place. Anyone who's ever been there knows that. Is it certain parts of town? Does it feel like it's escalating or dying off? You have a much better feel for this stuff than those of us who aren't there and don't have your experience in it.
Yeah, it's been centered at City Hall and the federal building in the downtown area by the 101. But last night, they couldn't get close to it. They got pushed away by LAPD after throwing glass bottles at police. And so what typically happens, and this is exactly what happened last night, is rioters have a primary target. If they can't get to their primary target or they get pushed away from their primary target, they're still amped up and they say, well, we're just going to go out and cause all sorts of mayhem. And so that's what we saw last night, a couple blocks away that hadn't really seen any action in the past few days. We're now seeing looting at all these different stores. I mean, the sushi place got looted, Apple, a weed store. I would hazard a guess that the local library or bookstore, I think those places are safer right now. But yeah, it is starting to spread, and that's kind of unusual. And I say that because usually the timeline, at least what was happening in 2020, was the worst parts of the riots were the first 3 days, give or take. We're now in day 5, and we're just now getting to the just looting random stores stage because they have the ability to do that because there's still not enough resources or personnel needed because, yeah, you're right. And this is what I've been telling people is that even if they can get the downtown area secured, Los Angeles and Los Angeles County is huge. And, with so many people that are very sympathetic to the rioters. And so you can lock down downtown, but who's to say it won't happen in Santa Monica or, Inglewood or Compton or Koreatown or Burbank or something, right? So I think it's good that President Trump is deploying more military personnel, but I think it's going to require even more to fully clamp down on the violence. Obviously, people can still protest, but we're still in the violent stage, and that's significant because it usually doesn't have enough steam for this long.
Julio, who is doing what when it comes to law enforcement? I mean this in LAPD, obviously they're going to be involved. We know we have National Guard. What are they actually doing? 700 Marines are coming. These are infantry Marines. So are they planning on putting these infantry Marines in close contact with these guys? Because I have a pretty good idea on how that's going to go. Who's doing what?
So my understanding is that because the active duty and the federalized National Guard, because they're not being activated under the Insurrection Act, but it's at a different authority, they are more limited in what they're able to do. And so basically the military personnel are going to be used to protect the federal building, the main one right next to City Hall, because that has been kind of the epicenter of everything. By doing that, that frees up the federal law enforcement agencies like ICE, like HSI, or the Federal Protective Service, who up until this point have been also helping with securing the perimeter. Because you have to keep in mind, they're still planning on doing honest operations here with everything that's going on. I mean, they're having to contend with what's happening in the streets with carrying out President Trump's orders. So by freeing up ICE agents or HSI agents from guard duty, and they can actually go into enforcement once again, so that it kind of take cares of two problems at once. So I don't know what we'll see where exactly they will be placed, and we'll see if the additional personnel will kind of mellow things out. But I mean, just yesterday when the protesters heard that, okay, it is official, the Marines are coming, the speaker was saying, "Are we going to be afraid of the Marines?" And everyone in the crowd was like, "No." And so, I don't know. I think because it's President Trump activating them, it is going to agitate them more. So we'll see what happens today in the coming days.
Yeah, I've been in that exact situation before in the Najaf, Iraq. It's amazing how pacified they get when you fix bayonets. Julio, thank you, my brother. As always, I appreciate you. Not afraid of the Marines. We'll see how that works. All right, guys, let me know. Now, I know I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight. Two different reasons. One, the Marines are coming. And two, I have Beam. I have dream powder from Beam. There are a lot of things out there you can take to go to sleep. Lots of them. You sell them at a gas station. Your doctor will write you a prescription. But I know. How many are natural? That's why you wake up all groggy and miserable. You know that? Because you're not taking natural things. I'll take this pill or drink this. And then you wake up and your eyes half closed. You want to die. With dream powder, you sleep like a baby and you wake up energized, like you didn't take anything, because it's natural. Melatonin and reishi and all these other things. It's a cup of hot chocolate. Have a cup of hot chocolate before bed and sleep like a baby. You want to save a bunch of money? Shopbeam.com/Jesse Kelly. We'll be back. Okay, so I know everybody's talking about Los Angeles. We've been talking about Los Angeles, but we do have to focus on some other things going on. For instance, what are they calling it? The Big Beautiful Bill, which is still not an actual bill yet. Rumor has it, it's really stuck in the Senate, and they are deeply divided. So what's going on? Let's ask Wade. Joining me now, United States Marine Corps veteran Wade Miller, also senior advisor for Center for Renewing America. Okay, Wade, the Big Beautiful Bill, what's the holdup? What's the Washington, D.C. dirt? Give it to us.
Well, on the conservative side, you have members who want deeper cuts on some of the mandatory spending programs, more savings on things like Medicaid. There's additional things we can do to save a lot of money there. On the moderate side, some of them think that these cuts go too deep and they don't want to cut as much money. And I don't understand that logic. We're $37 trillion in debt. The moderate right now kind of fashions itself as the Reaganism wing of the party, but they're neither socially conservative or fiscally conservative. They're kind of the worst of both of those ranks. So their job is just to perpetually throw a wrench in the gears here. And we need to get this bill done. It's got $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. Hopefully the Senate can go deeper and broader with that and lock in longer mandatory savings. And then we, of course, on the back end we can get after discretionary, and happy to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, Wade, we hear terms like, well, I just used the term deeply divided, and we keep reading articles saying they're deeply divided, but how divided are we? Are we a senator away? Are we 10 senators away? What do you know?
Well, so the White House and HFC and others are in conversations with their comrades in the Senate, and HFC just sent over a 10-page memo, I think, outlining all of the various options that they would have at their disposal to get additional cuts. Didn't demand all of it, just said, pick and choose. Here's some things that are on the table. But you have, a handful of Republican senators that just don't really want to do any of this. They want tax cuts maybe, but they don't actually want to solve the spending crisis. And, at the same time, they don't want to talk about social issues. So at a certain point, you have to ask, what point is it in having them if they're not there at least on fiscal conservative votes?
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, well, Russ Vought is somebody I respect immensely. I'm sure you do as well. Russ said this is what he said.
If H.R. 1 fails, if whatever comes back from the Senate fails to get to the desk of the president and signed into law, what happens at the end of this year?
I think we'll have a recession. I think we will be, economic storm clouds will be very dark. I think we'll have a 60% tax increase on the American people. And just to, if I could answer Congressman Hoyer's question or statement, the notion that this bill, I mean, we've been actually criticized unfairly for on the reconciliation bill for the fact that it is all mandatory savers. We're using the same model that Bill Clinton signed into law, and we think it will have incredible impact on not just these programs, but giving people dignity of work. And we're not going to be ashamed by that, but we do need to explain ourselves to those that are being impacted by the watchdogs in this town.
Wade, I have actually talked to people I trust economically who kind of echo what Russ said there. Not necessarily people even pitching for the bill, but people saying we've gotten so hooked on all this government spending, getting off of it needs to be more of a weaning than a snap all at once. What do you know?
Well, yes and no. So our situation is fairly dire from a fiscal perspective. We need to be aggressive on this. But you know, the political reality in D.C. is that people who know that this bill needs to get done, for the reasons that Russ mentioned, they're trying to navigate how much can we get done while still getting it done. Because at the end of the day, you know, we can demand 2.5, 3 trillion in cuts, but then we end up with zero because the moderates will vote against it. And no one has argued that the reconciliation bill by itself is our answer to the national debt. We're going to have to take many steps to get there. I think 1.6 trillion in mandatory savers over a 10-year period is a huge step in the right direction. As a reminder, everyone touts the Gingrich welfare reforms of the 90s. I think Russ mentioned it in terms of what Bill Clinton signed into law. In real terms, compared to today's dollars, that was about 800 billion in cuts. This bill has 1.6 billion in cuts. So it is a huge step in the right direction. By itself, it's not going to solve the debt limit, crisis. It's not going to solve our deficits. We do need additional steps after this, but we need to figure out what is the most we can get and still get the votes to get it passed and then get this thing done.
Wade, what's a pocket rescission?
I'm glad you asked. So, you know, right now, reconciliation process is dealing with mandatory spending. And a lot of people have asked, why aren't we doing DOGE cuts on the reconciliation package? And the reason is that reconciliation can't get at discretionary spending. It will be deemed as extraneous in the Senate and be stripped out through the Byrd rule process. So an alternative to this, to get at the discretionary spending side, is a rescission. Now, a regular rescission is a message sent to Congress by the president where he says, I want to cut this spending. And normally, the president can then withhold funding for 45 days. In that period, Congress has the opportunity to approve it or to reject it or only approve some of it. And after that 45-day withholding period, whatever is not cut is you can't do a rescissions package on. You're unable to cut that spending. So there's some risk in putting forward a rescission package because if a few moderate Republicans block it, then we lose our ability to rescind those funds this year. So we've put forward what we are calling a pocket rescission strategy. So remember, I mentioned that as soon as the president submits this package, the president has 45 days to withhold funding. So if you submit this package after roughly August 18th, that time frame, the president can withhold funding into into October. And the reason that matters is once you're past September 30th, the budget authority to spend those funds lapses. So if you do a pocket rescission after roughly August 18th, no matter what Congress does, no matter how many senators or members of the House, the moderates, the squishy swamp dwellers, no matter what they think about it, they can't stop it. So it's an easy way for the White House to bank hundreds of billions of dollars in cuts in fiscal year 25 and send that back to the American people and not add it to the balance sheets of our debt.
Do you get the impression
in other words, it's how we get our DOGE cuts.
Do you get the impression that Trump White House would back something like that? Are they on that? Trump can be all over the map on spending.
Well, unlike the last, Biden administration and the last Trump administration, there are not a lot of leaks coming out of this White House. So I can't confirm 100%. However, I will say that I know that Russ knows about this. Russ has talked about it on CNN. He said the word pocket rescission on CNN. Mark Paoletta, one of the lawyers over at OMB, wrote a memo on this in 2021. So I suspect, given how much I know that Russ and Mark and others want to get at this money and cut it so that we don't spend it and fuel the woke and weaponized deep state that's being targeted against the American people, I can only assume by reading the tea leaves that this is their preferred strategy as well, or else we would have probably seen more rescissions packages already. So I think that they're looking at everything that's going on in Congress and they're putting out one relatively small rescissions package as a test to say, here you go, Congress, can you get this done? If not, then I suspect after that you won't see any more rescissions packages until roughly August. Or if you do, it'll be very small packages that are less risky and more likely to pass.
Wade, who are these squishies in the Senate who are blocking this on our side?
I mean, they're the ones they're the ones that are always in the way. It's the Susan Collins, the Lisa Murkowski, the Mitch McConnells, that for whatever reason, they always find a reason not to support even the easiest fiscally conservative arguments. And I get it. They're in, either they're in swing states or they're just moderate Republicans. But again, these are the same people that will go out in their town halls and they'll say that they're socially moderate so that they don't have to answer on abortion and marriage. But they'll assure their Republican voters by saying, but we're fiscally conservative. And here we go. Here's fiscally conservative things that they could be doing. And yet, the Don Bacons of the world and the others, they're out there touting Reaganism and saying that they're going to vote against these cuts. And I just don't know how you square the peg of saying, we're $37 trillion in debt, but we have to fund $9 billion in foreign aid going to all of these NGOs that hate America and are aligned against us and have been propping up the censorship industrial complex. It's a little bit of insanity. And, enough is enough. We need to get these rescissions done.
We do. Wade, come back soon, brother. Semper Fi. All right. Mel K has thoughts on all this stuff. Next.
And obviously, this is a moment where we have to be on the streets all over the country to protest what's happening to our immigrant community, but more broadly to protest what's happening to our democracy. This is the most corrupt administration in the history of the country, and we are going to rise to this moment by being out there on the streets.
Again, as we've talked about many times, two different divisions to communism, always have been, always will be. There are the street communists and the elite communists. And they work together all the time. The elites go on television. We got to be street ready. We got to go out there in these streets. And all the animals and drugged out trainees and foreigners and super freaks we have in this country heed the call. And they all put down their cats and their marijuana and they run to the streets to go hurt police officers. Joining me now, Mel K, host of the Mel K Show. Mel, it's all so predictable. What is not is the GOP apparently appears ready to hit back.
Well, we hope so. I mean, the real truth is we have to really look at this as the bigger picture, which is why is this happening? We are in a color revolution in America. What is the issue? What is going on? Frankly, I believe that they are trying to protect their global financial system and would appreciate if Donald Trump would stop trying to reignite the American economy and prosperity so that we walk down the path of technocracy. And these useful idiots, that nothing's new with this. This is the color revolution playbook. They've played out over and over. We've been in one since 2016, and they have to go kinetic now, or they completely lose. And the sad part is what's really being lost is our future, our children, and our sovereignty. And we need to stand up now more than ever, because the truth about post-World War II America is that we have not been sovereign basically since 1913. And the people that are funding this world war right now, which this is part of it, really are nervous that their entire model is falling apart. They need World War III. Why not kick it off in America?
Mel, make that connection for me. People see Mexican flags in LA. You're talking about the global financial system. Take your time. Merge those worlds.
Okay, so what we need to understand is that post World War II, we were lied to about basically everything, particularly the CIA, what it does, and who it protects. I frankly believe that it protects the global financial system, which includes the NGOs. There was a act passed in 1946 that made the NGOs and all of the UN tentacles and the Rockefeller Brothers, Ford Foundation, all these foundations, sovereign immune foundations. Basically, not only do they not pay taxes, but they are not even subject to the rule of law, investigation, or anything else. Once DOGE started cutting into USAID and looking at the money around the world that funds these color revolutions and these revolutionaries, they had to go into overdrive. And frankly, I believe this was long planned. If Trump got back in, they were talking about it back in April, the lawfare crew right on MSNBC saying they were planning for this if Trump won. And here we are. This is election integrity project people. These are the Trump haters, and they are using the useful idiots that they brought into this country to fight a battle to destroy America from within so that they can walk us straight into the Agenda 2030 technocracy that they have sunk trillions of dollars into. At the end of the day, this is another play for a global war to have the bankers recalibrate and go into another phase after another world war of reconstruction that will just loot America of everything we have left and give us the final coup de grace. And that is basically what the open border was about, as far as I'm concerned. This was all about the national sovereignty of the United States, and particularly the Constitution and the Bill of Rights being a problem for the global financial system that is being built around us and frankly is ready for takeoff as soon as America gives up and surrenders. Order out of chaos is the way they work. And right now they are causing as much chaos as possible so that the American people say, just make it stop, whatever we need to do. Though they launch maybe a global public infrastructure without us even realizing that what they are doing is ending our sovereignty. And that is what this battle is about. Sovereignty and trillions of dollars at stake.
Karen Bass is Los Angeles' mayor, of course, and, well, she's been all over the television. Here she was.
We need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city. It is not warranted, and the only thing it does is contribute to chaos. This was chaos that was started at Washington, D.C. You have a situation like we did in the last Trump administration where kids were afraid to go to school because they weren't sure their parents would be there, where people were afraid to go to work. And you just think about the disruption in families. You might have a father that's going into a warehouse or a plant. You might have a mother who is serving as a child care worker on the other side of town, either in somebody's home or not. You disrupt the entire ecosystem. You impact our overall economy. If people are afraid to go to work, this is a city of immigrants. If they're afraid to go to work, you are going to hit our economy in a way that is completely unnecessary. This is a problem that started on Friday morning when the raids happened. This did not need to take place.
This week were about an international criminal organization and money laundering connected to the cartel. Second of all, Karen Bass, we used to have a rule in America that communists and socialists could not run for office. It was antithetical to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Thus, they could not take an actual oath of office in America. And yet this woman slid through. She has been a lifelong communist, not to mention she worked for National Endowment for Democracy during color revolutions in Libya and elsewhere. She has always been somebody who has been an agitator inside, and it's not a surprise that she was elected in the fully captured and communist-infused California. But she is a long-term and very experienced color revolutionary, and that is exactly what she's kicking off in L.A. Unfortunately for the people of Los Angeles, she is not going to protect them. Neither is Gavin Newsom, because they're both owned by the international money laundering cartel that runs everything above this country. We have a group of people that will destroy America from within because they are not loyal to this nation. They are only loyal to the financial backers that fund all these NGOs, and she has been a part of that for decades.
Mel, what do you say to people who say this is all just bad for the Democrat Party? This is going to lose them power. Trump looks better. Poll numbers are going through the roof. Democrats look bad. What do you say to those people?
I say this has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This has to do with the United States of America, our sovereignty, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our future. Donald Trump is there for a few years. The problem in America is the American people. The American people do not know their history. They have been lied to since World War II about everything from the UN to endless wars to the looting of our money through the IRS and the Fed, straight to international organizations that fund every war. Our children cannot go in and fight again for Europe. We fought a war in 1776, and yet twice we've been dragged into Europe. The EU has never changed. They still want to control the world through Brussels. And the United States dismantling ourselves from this international banking situation, the international money laundering, the war, endless wars, is the most dangerous thing in the world for these totalitarians that want to basically create a world government with a global public infrastructure, with the Bank of International Settlements, which is an opaque bank that needs to be looked into. And frankly, we need to get a real history of America out there to the people to realize how much they've been looted and lied to. And this is the last stand. The international banking cartel that runs all the wars and is running this entire operation with their, NGOs that are protected, immune, don't have any aspect of law and order within their rulings. They don't want to lose power. And frankly, this is a small group of elites using these people that they funneled into here. We have many things we can do, but if we let our Constitution be a picture on the wall instead of something we use to fight back, then it's our fault. The people of the United States of America cannot sit by because their lives aren't ruined and they're not in upheaval and we're not having active kinetic war and think that it's going to go away. It has to be the American people locally taking back their governments locally, using the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, or we are not going to have one.
Tell me about this book, Americans Anonymous.
Well, I wrote this book because I believe that our country purposefully is addicted to conflict and chaos by the what I call the international banking cartel, but also the global public-private partnership that treats America like they're the parent company and 350 million of us are just allowed to live here. And the facts are we need to have an intervention in America. We need to get real truth about our history, particularly the CIA, the banking institutions, everything that happened after World War II. We have been looted and lied to. We have funded all these wars, all this regime change, and it is the American people that need to take control back. We are acting as if everything is outside of our control because decades of mind control and manipulation to make us think we have no choice. It is the American people that can save the world from this tyranny that is capturing every ounce of the planet, and we need to really go through it. So I go through the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, which I think is very relevant right now because although we had fought the crown back in the day when we wrote the Declaration of Independence, right now it's an international banking cartel and the tentacles of the UN, Chatham House, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Rockefeller NGOs, all of these groups are functioning above our government. Our elected officials are captured. Our banking institutions are not working for us. And right now they are all trying to save themselves while destroying the Constitution. The fundamental transformation that Barack Obama promised was the end of national sovereignty because that was always the goal. So if the American people do not know our real history and about the Frankfurt School infiltrating our education system, the Nazis that came through Argentina into all of our institutions, the communists that were taken out of Germany and put into all different places in America, not to mention Operation Paperclip, then they have no idea that we were infiltrated long ago. And JFK tried to warn us, as did Eisenhower, as did McKinley, as did Donald Trump. And frankly, Donald Trump is hated because there are trillions of dollars at stake if America remains America. And America needs to be sovereign. And when it comes to what's happening with technocracy and technology, it is the American people that must say the Constitution and Bill of Rights have to still be front and center, whether you want to join the global public infrastructure or have Palantir track and trace surveil us. We can't allow a Patriot Act 2.0 technocracy to happen and let the Constitution and Bill of Rights go by the wayside. We have to demand it's first front and center before any of the surveillance tech. Because let's be honest, if somebody gets in there again, you think they're not going to weaponize that against every single one of us that have spoken out against this? They will, and they are already planning it. 2026, if the American people do not mobilize now for the 2026 midterms, they are going to slide right back in there. And before you know it, it'll be worse than it's ever been because that is the goal, the end of national sovereignty of all nation states, most importantly, the United States.
Mel, appreciate you as always. All right, lighten the mood. Next. All right. It is time to lighten the mood. And look, it's got to be exhausting being a Democrat in modern America. It used to be, they were just a different party. But now, when you're a Democrat in the country, you have this completely unrelated group. That's part of your constituency. But then there's this unrelated group that they have nothing in common. You've got to pander to the climate commies, and you've got to pander to all the illegals. And of course, you have the gay mob, and you have to pander to them. And then there's the fake black civil rights mob. Kill Whitey. You got to do all this endless amounts of pandering, and it just looks exhausting. And then you end up humiliating yourself. Andrew Cuomo's running to be mayor of New York City, and man, this is the crap you have to do.
The city of New York. We are the capital of diversity. 180 languages spoken in our school system. 180 different languages, people from all across the world. That makes us stronger, not weaker. And
yes. 180 languages makes us stronger. I'll see you tomorrow. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.